Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the channel. This is I, Eric's UK, back with RPG A Day 2023, Day 8. And the prompt for today is favourite character. Now, I sort of did this in last year's RPG A Day, where we were talking about online play. And perhaps my favourite character ever was an online character I had in the early OOs on a D&D 3rd edition chat set in the Scardland setting that was published by Sword and Sorcery Studios. But I'm not going to talk about her today. We did that last year. So I'm going to talk about another character of which I have very fond memories. And this goes back several years plus, when we were playing a lot of Pathfinder Society. And I don't normally like playing characters that are up front. I like to play support characters. I generally play healers or knowledge monkeys or something like that. I don't like being the centre of attention so much. However, I came up with a concept for a character for PFS that I really wanted to play. And his name was Bluebell. And Bluebell came about because I never twink the system. I never try to make the most powerful character I can. It's just generally not part of my nature. And I decided that Bluebell was going to be a fighter. And I was going to be the damage dealer. And I would play that sort of character. And Bluebell was basically the 18 strength, muscly, warrior type. Didn't bother really wearing armor. He would just shrug off the damage with his hit points. And had the minimum intelligence you could do, which was 6. His wisdom was quite low. I think that was an 8 or something. Everything went into his strength and con. He was basically the brick outhouse. And his backstory, as I came up with, was that as a child he was very effeminate. And rather than working the fields or training to be a warrior like the rest of his people, he much preferred sitting in the field with the girls, making daisy chains and things like that. And he used to have the mick taken out of him by the other boys in the village, and they would call him Bluebell. And one day on his deathbed, his father says to him, basically, son, man up. And so he does. In a sort of way. And basically he joins the Pathfinder Society not because he wants to learn about the secrets of the ancient world or preserve arcane knowledge. He's there basically to protect everybody else and smack the living out of all the monsters and the baddies and everybody else that gets in the way of the rest of the party. And that was his goal. And I built him as a weapon master for a weapon they have in Pathfinder. He's a huge, great big hammer called an Earthbreaker. And he put everything into that. 2-handed weapon, critical, up the wazoo and so on. And his role, as I say, was basically not to do the talking, not to do the thinking. It was just to smack the living snot out of everything. And it really sort of became a character that I enjoyed a lot. I say I'm not really one for doing that sort of thing or being the main, sort of DPS of the party. And I can remember a scenario. I believe it was called the Elven Entanglement. And I remember my friend Landon saying something about it was a scenario where the first encounter would often lead to a TPK, because the thing that was faced at the beginning was quite hard. And I think he ran the scenario for us, and I went, right, Bluebell's doing this. And I can't remember what this beastie was, but the defining moment, or one of his defining moments, was this particular encounter. This big gribbly monster, I think it was like a gargantuan something, and it could basically just like walk over the party and did massive amounts of trample damage. And I remember something like just holding, doing a hold action until it was in striking range of him, as this thing comes bundling into the party, stomps over a couple of them, and then all of a sudden there's this nobody steps on a church in my town sort of moment, and thwack, and almost obliterated this beastie in one swing, leaving it just fair game for everybody else to suddenly pick off the last few hit points on it. And that was like awesome. I like this character. And another instance, we had a scenario involving one of the Rune Lords, and he'd got a benefit from another scenario where temporarily he could summon a future version of himself to flank with. And so going up against this Rune Lord in melee combat, all of a sudden he activates this thing, another version of him appears across from him as a flanking partner, and and between the two of them, they basically just pummel this poor ancient evil villain to death, for the most part. As I say, I'm not one for those sort of characters. I like the support characters, but I had a huge love for Bluebell, and he actually did manage to get through to level 16 with the later scenarios and the sort of like wrap-up storyline. I doubt he ever actually became a proper representative. I can't remember what the term is now for the Pathfinder Society, but I imagine he's still out there basically wailing on everything to keep his father happy in the afterlife. But of all the characters that I've played, Bluebell was definitely one of my absolute favourites. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow in the next RPG A Day video. Give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, take care, guys. Good gaming.